Penalty, also called as capital punishment, is one of the legal process in which a person is punished and put to death for a crime by the state. It is considered as the ultimate denial of human rights. If a person is punished in this manner, a death sentence is a judicial decree, whereas execution is the real process of the cause of the death of the person. This degrading, inhuman, and cruel punishment is being done in name of justice. It desecrates the right to life, which is announced publicly or officially in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Death penalty is not considered as mandatory, rather, it is considered as discretionary in all the capital offenses except the murder case. Background of crime, physical, and mental condition of the offender. Age of the accused is taken into account by the judges for various capital offenses. It is valid and justified form of punishment. One calls it as a deterrence, while it is regarded as potential of executing innocent people by the others. Also, one calls it justice, punishment and retribution, while the others say that execution is murder. Here are the positive sides and the negative sides of implementation of death penalty in the Philippines.
Positive side. Death penalty should be implemented in the Philippines, and here are the advantages. It deters bad people to commit heinous crimes. One reason supports of the capital punishment or for death penalty is the effectiveness as a crime deterrent. According to the advocates for death sentencing, potential criminals will be scared to suffer such hard punishment as a result. They will be hesitant to commit crimes like rape and murder. It is what hardened criminals deserve. Some of the criminals that are under capital punishment include murder and rape, depending on the country or state legalizing the practice. For pro-death penalty, there are criminals who are repeat offenders and not scared to rape and murder again, knowing that they will be only imprisoned. Next, it reduces the number of committed crimes. People are for death penalty posit that without it, the number of major criminals like murder and homicide will escalate since bad elements will not be afraid to do whatever they want, from dealing drugs to killing people. Without harsh punishment for their offenses, criminals will be taking advantage of weaker people and victims. Most importantly, the government needs not to spend for criminals who are murderers and such. Death penalty costs the government less compared to the cost of a life imprisonment because they will be given the expenses of food, health, care, and other costs that will sustain their lives. Some critics say that spending for people who committed such heinous crimes is an impractical and just waste of taxpayers.
Negative side. The death penalty is an inhumane, unlawful, and ineffective response to drugs. The adoption of a draft law by the Philippine House of Representatives to revive the death penalty sets the country on a dangerous path in flagrant violation of its international legal obligations, Amnesty International said today. The idea that the death penalty will rid the country of drugs is simply wrong. The resumption of executions will not rid the Philippines of problems associated with drugs or deter crime. It is an inhumane, ineffective punishment and is never the solution. The Philippines' attempts to reintroduce it are clearly unlawful. This will just earn the country notoriety as one of the few countries to revive its horrific use, said Champa Patel, Amnesty International's director for Southeast Asia and the Pacific. The proposal was passed with 216 votes in favor, 54 against, and 1 abstention. The Speaker of the House openly threatened to strip members of the Congress of key positions if they dared to vote against the bill or even abstain from voting. The bill will now go to the Senate. The draft has been passed at a time when the country is reeling from a wave of more than 8,000 deaths, many of them through extrajudicial executions in its war on drugs. Since President Rodrigo Duterte came to power on 30 June 2016, Amnesty International is opposed to the death penalty of all crimes in all circumstances. Under international law, the death penalty must be restricted to most serious crimes, and drug-related crimes do not meet this threshold. There is also no evidence to show that the death penalty has a unique deterrent effect. In 2007, the Philippines ratified an international treaty that categorically prohibits executions and commits the country to the abolition of the death penalty. Legally, this obligation cannot be withdrawn at any time. Since the death penalty was abolished in 2006, the Philippines has been a strong advocate against capital punishment and has championed several initiatives to this end in international forums. It has also worked to communicate the death sentences imposed on Filipino nationals abroad, such as overseas workers. Background: House Bill 4727 is a consolidated version of several proposals adopted by the Subcommittee on Judicial Reforms of the Committee on Justice of the House of Representatives on 29 November 2016. As of today, 141 countries have abolished death penalty in law or practice in the Asia-Pacific region. 19 countries have abolished the death penalty for all crimes, and a further 8 are abolitionist in practice. The new Criminal Code of Mongolia, abolishing the death penalty for all crimes, will become effective in July 2017.
In today's world, terrible crimes are being committed daily. Many people approve death penalty in order to decrease the crime rates in the country. If it is implemented by the government, the society would be afraid to commit crimes. The government is greatly alarmed because of continuous rise of the crime rates in the country. This issue became a reason for reinstating death penalty as a law in the justice system of the Philippines. According to one of the sites made by Person, the world's largest integrated education, death penalty is the infliction of death upon a person by judicial process as a punishment for an offense. Nearly 60 countries are still implementing death penalty. Some of these are China, United States, North and South Korea, and China. On the other hand, 137 countries, including Philippines, have outlawed death penalty. The Philippine government had made a lot of hearing to discuss whether death penalty should be reinstated or not. Theoretical politicians wanted to revive death penalty in the Philippine justice system, for they think it would decrease the numbers of crime rate in the country. Philosophical politicians and the church firmly do not want to return death penalty as a law here in the country. Death penalty as a law in the Philippine justice system, for we are religion-oriented, and the Bible told us that killing other people is immoral. A death penalty is a sentence execution for the murder and some capital crimes, serious crimes, especially murder, which are punishable by death. The death penalty or capital punishment may be prescribed by Congress or any state legislature for murder and other capital crimes. The Supreme Court has ruled that the death penalty is not fair violation of the 8th Amendment's ban or cruel and unusual punishment. Furthermore, the 6th Amendment does not require a jury trial in capital crimes cases. On April 15, 2006, the sentence of 1,230 death row inmates were commuted to life imprisonment in what Amnesty International believed to be the largest ever commutation of death sentences. Capital punishment was again suspended via Republic Act number 9346, in which was signed by the President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo on June 24, 2006.
The death penalty has been enforced for as long as recorded history. But is it morally acceptable? Capital punishment may deter crime, but at the same time, it may also be considered a cruel and unusual punishment. Questions of the constitutionality of the death penalty have been reduced executions, but have crowded the death row with inmates. Many people support the death penalty, although it is an extremely controversial issue. Capital punishment creates debate over racial biases and does not deter crime. It kills many innocent people as well. Capital punishment has been around for more than 300 years in the United States. It has been a notorious matter for as long as it has been established. This form of law consists of three phases. First, the colonial era, which was the first few years of the nations. It was of the most widespread and unquestioned uses of capital punishment for major crimes. The next phase was the 19th century, which consisted of a long period of declining use capital punishment. And the courts abolished all laws pertaining to the death penalty. Finally, the third phase, which was the early and mid-20th, began with enormous support for capital punishment to be reinstated. The death penalty has been frequently imposed but rarely enforced. Since the reinstatement of executions in 1977, there have been a total of 432 executions. Texas leads the way by far with the most executed. There is no credible evidence that the death penalty deters crime for more effectively than long terms of imprisonment. States that have death penalty laws do not have lower crime rates or murder rates than states without such laws.
There is no denying the scourge illicit drugs have foisted upon our society. And neither is there any denying the audacity with which malefactors, whether under the influence or otherwise, have perpetrated the most perverse and atrocious crimes in the most repugnant of manners. Our criminal justice system has had to make do with penal laws that are perceived to be less than dissuasive. There is evidently a need to repurgate the war against criminality by reviving proven deterrent coupled by its consistent, persistent, and determined implementation. And this need is compelling and critical as any. The imposition of the death penalty for heinous crimes and the mode of its implementation, both subject or repelled laws, are crucial components of an effective dispensation of both reformative and integrative justice. It is thus imperative that this Congress is the exercise of each mandate to take every conceivable step to protect the honor and dignity and the very life of each and every law-abiding Filipino, passed in the most expeditious manner, such as laws imposing the penalty of death for the most abhorrent of offense and provide of extenuation. For this reason, passage of this most earnest suit.
They have 5 reasons to abolish the death penalty. 1. You can take it back. The death penalty is irreversible, absolute judgment may lead to people paying for crimes they did not commit. Texas man Cameron Todd Billingham was executed in Texas in 2004, allegedly setting a fire that killed his 3 daughters. Following his execution, further evidence revealed that Billingham did not set to the fire that caused their deaths, but it came too late. 2. It doesn't deter criminals. There is no credible evidence that the death penalty deters crimes more effectively than a prison term. In fact, evidence reveals the opposite. Since abolishing the death penalty in 1976, Canada's murder rate has steadily declined as of 2016 was it rather at its lowest since 1966. 3. There is no human way to kill. The 2006 execution of Angel Neves Diaz by a so-called human lethal injection took 34 minutes and required 2 doses. Doctors have said that it is likely Diaz's death was painful. Other brutal methods of execution used around the world include hanging, shooting, and beheading. The nature of these deaths only continues to perpetuate the cycle of violation and may not alleviate the pain already suffered by the victim's family. 4. It makes a public spectacle of an individual's death. Executions and often undertake in an extremely public manner, with public hangings in Iran or live broadcast of lethal injection in the US. According to UN human rights experts, executions in public serve no legitimate purpose and only increase the cruel, inhumane, and degrading nature of this punishment. All executions violate rather the right to live. Those carried out public are a gross affront to human dignity which cannot be tolerated, said Asiba Had Sauru, Amnesty International Deputy Director for the Middle East and North Africa.
The negative side of House will present 3 main points on why we negate on the issue of death penalty. 1. As the first speaker will tackle about the relevance of death penalty issue in the Philippines, for it is unjustifiably expensive. Number 2. The second speaker of this side of the House will talk about the issue of death penalty does not deter crime effectively based on statistics. And number 3. Our last speaker will talk about the practicability of the existing Philippine provisions or laws that will support sensible alternatives rather than the implementation of death penalty. Give me some proof that the Philippines has enough resource or even just about would support your claim that the Philippines is capable for pursuing death penalty as a capital punishment for heinous crimes, and if ever you have it there, please at some point present facts about the sustainability issue of death penalty with regards to the current Philippines economic situation. Then maybe you can at a little way convince me to support your side of the House, or simply how show me any reliable proof of that warehouse of money that the Philippines possesses, especially for the restoration of death penalty. Well, maybe you can argue that it's cheaper to the away and be done with a criminal rather than to house and feed them for the rest of their natural lives. Well, I will lay down the facts of my research that aside from your barbaric point of view, it is not cheaper because the general statistics showed that the penalty is 3 times more expensive than life imprisonment. The irreversibility of death sentence requires courts to follow heightened due process in the preparation and course of the trial. The separate sentencing phase of the trial can take even longer than the guilt or innocence phase of the trial, and defendants are much more likely to insist on a trial when they are facing a possible death sentence. After conviction, there are constitutionally mandated appeals which involve both prosecution and defense costs. Since there is no reliable historical data in the Philippines available in internet and other general periodicals, let me use the American costing of death penalty as widely used in intelligence discourses. Here are some specifics from Washington State, which has a very careful and involved system for capital punishment. State versus Gonzales, murder of a police officer, costs were at 481 $576 or 21.7 million. When it was determined that the defendant was incapable or premeditated intent and the death penalty was dropped. This allowed a simpler, quicker trial of 1 month. Well, consider that one conviction of death penalty was not even given and the trial only lasted for a month, but it already cost that much. Most of these costs occur in every case for which capital punishment is sought, regardless of the outcome. Thus, the true cost of the death penalty includes all the added expenses of the unsuccessful trials in which the death penalty is sought but not achieved. Moreover, if a defendant is convicted but not given the death sentence, the state will still incur the cost of life imprisonment in addition to the increased trial expenses. Well, let us consider that scenarios presented with a shorter period of time, where millions of pesos were already incurred. Then how about the long number of years before a case here in the Philippines is settled? For the states which employ the death penalty, this luxury comes at a higher price, and I can't imagine how the Philippines could sustain such costs. According to an article wrote by Ron Blackman, during the reign of death penalty, here in the Philippines, which won an award for excellence in reporting from the Society of Asian Publishers. In the Philippines, inmates pay for their crimes in many ways, aside from serving their sentence in prison. The inhumane prison film itself, well, I can attest to that because I myself had a chance to visit a family friend who was being charged of a felony and was later on discovered that it was just a mistake of identity.
Positive effects of death penalty. The death penalty is just if a person kills another person in particularly erroneous circumstances, that person deserves to die. No other punishment is strong enough for the worst crimes. The death penalty deters murder. When people are thinking about whether to murder someone, they will take into account the death penalty and will think twice about killing. The death penalty is necessary to make sure that civilians understand that government will protect them. People need to know that the government will protect their rights. This allows them to have confidence in government and keep our society stable and coherent. If we let murder live, our society will be weakened because people will no longer trust the government. The death penalty is humane, even though some people claims that lethal injection might be painful. There is no solid proof that this is so clearly. Our method of executing criminals in very humane compared to past methods and in particular compared to the way in which the criminals kill their victim. Therefore, we should not worry about the idea that death penalty is cruel and unusual.